Hi everyone, as promised, I'm going to be doing a series here on my personal channel on the new television series Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D, which is part of the, not only the Marvel cinematic universe, but also part of Joss Whedon's filmography, because he is one of the principal guys behind the show, executive producer and director of the pilot. Excuse me, my nose is a little funny today. I waited until now to do this video because I want to talk about details that will probably be considered spoilers. So hopefully all of you who wanted to see the show, the premiere episode, have done so by now. Either you watched it when it was on, or you DVR'd it, or you on demand, whatever. So I don't have to worry about holding back on anything. And this is what I'm planning to do for basically each episode in the series, talk in detail about some of the stuff that's happened. So if you haven't seen the show and are planning to, beware. I'm going to be giving away pretty much everything. Okay, so let's get started here. This show not only references the Avengers, but also the other Marvel movies, as well as the most recent Iron Man 3. I was a little surprised that, well, first of all, the show is really fast-paced, and there's a lot of information that flies at you in this premiere episode, which Joss Whedon directed but didn't actually write. First of all, the tech that they used to neutralize Gunn at the end, not Gunn obviously, J. August Richards, who played Gunn on Angel. Mike Peterson, he's got Extremis, and which is the thing that was afflicting people in Iron Man 3. And they managed to subdue him in the end. You may recall that there was this dialogue that Coulson had when he asked his scientist people, Fitz and Simmons, how to stop him, and like, well, we could either clear everyone out and let him blow up, all on his own, or we could put a bullet in his head and that will stop the process. And Coulson's like, I need a third option. You've got just a couple hours, you better come up with something. Which they do. They manage to, dose him with something by zapping him from across the room with some weapon. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, now, if Stark figured out how to neutralize, oh, by the way, spoilers not only for this show, but for Iron Man 3 and other Marvel movies that you may not have seen. Again, beware. If Stark figured out in Iron Man 3 how to neutralize Extremis, and basically get rid of it, cure a person of Extremis, then how are they able to come up with this in the span of just a very, very short time and manage to get this guy put down? And I'm really glad I watched the show twice, because otherwise I wouldn't have figured this out. As it turns out, in the very first scene where you see Fitz and Simmons, they're talking about something Fitz developed called the Night-Night gun, which will subdue a person, and apparently this is what they use. So I'm watching this and thinking, okay, was I supposed to recognize that weapon that you see only briefly in just that one scene at the beginning of the show as the one they used to take down Peterson? It seemed kind of unlikely. It was really abrupt. The guy, he has this futuristic-looking weapon with blue lights on it and zaps the guy with it, and everything's fine. I'm just like, where did they get the tech for this? Did Tony just show up and drop off this thing? Or maybe he sent Pepper, or did he send Don Cheadle to do it? Why didn't those guys show up? But no, it isn't anything like that. So I'm glad that I watched it a second time, because I was able to appreciate the way that that was set up earlier. But not as well as it would have. Again, it was just like, was I supposed to recognize that thing from the beginning of the show? I guess I was, but I missed out on it. It's funny, the very first scene of the movie has a reference where Peterson, the J. August Richards character, is with his son and is talking about going to Aunt Mindy's ranch, and that's where they end up at the end of the episode, and I didn't catch that reference at the beginning, though. The scientist, the evil Extremis scientist who pretends to just be a girl who was caught in a blast and is looking for the guy who saved her. I recognize this actress, but she doesn't have a name yet. The character doesn't have a name. She's never seen Peterson just basically calls her Doctor. But she's the one who sends the guy dressed as a police officer to take him out in the climax. So I guess we'll be seeing more of her, but I know I've seen her in something, but I don't know what it is. I really don't. Ron Glass, of course, shows up. He was in Firefly and Serenity, played Shepherd Book, so that was cool to see. And of course, Cobie Smulders, appears as Maria Hill, the other agent from S.H.I.E.L.D., who is Samuel Jackson's sidekick in the Avengers. I suspect that she'll be very busy shooting episodes for How I Met Your Mother still, so if we see any more of her, it's only going to be very brief appearances. She might only just be in the pilot, I don't know. But as for the main cast, most of the people in the main cast I did not recognize at all. The only two people I knew were Gregg, who plays Coulson, of course, and Ming-Na Wen as Miranda May, Agent Miranda May, who's the pilot and martial arts expert, who is sort of one of the senior agents on the team. She's been in a lot of shows in various... She was on ER, she was on the Spawn TV series, Stargate Universe, Eureka, 2.5 Men, you know, so she's been around for a while. Plus she was in films, she did the voice of Mulan for the Disney animated film and the Joy Luck Club. Not that the Joy Luck Club was animated. She also provided the voice of the main character in the Final Fantasy animated movie from 2001. And Gregg, of course, you all know as Coulson from the other Marvel movies. He also, in addition to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., appeared on the FX network show The S.H.I.E.L.D., which is kind of a funny coincidence. He was also in The West Wing for a while, and he's been in a ton of movies, most specifically The Usual Suspects. He had kind of a small part in that. And Much Ado About Nothing, of course, which is the Joss Whedon film that came out just this last summer. The thing basically shot in his backyard, the Shakespeare adaptation. Of course, there's a lot of Joss Whedon's veterans in that. Now, all the young people in the cast, the main character for me is pretty much Skye, the hacker. And my first thought was, okay, she's a computer hacker living out of her van. She is much too glamorous looking for that. Her hair, her makeup, much too perfect. Doesn't make sense. Chloe Bennet is named the actress, and apparently she was on Nashville, and I didn't recognize her, but when I looked up her name, I figured she must be the girl who was assistant to a record producer, a record company executive, and I remember liking her a lot in that show, or at least thinking she was very good looking. Then there's Brett Dalton, who plays Ward, the agent who has that fight scene in the beginning, and he's been on Army Wives and Blue Bloods and a few other series. Then you've got a couple of English people. Iain de Caestecker, I think that's how you pronounce his name. That's a really cool name. He plays Fitz, the male half of Fitz Simmons. He was on Coronation Street as Adam Barlow, not that I've ever seen that show. And then there's Elizabeth Henstridge, who plays Simmons, and she was on Hollyoaks as Emily Alexander, not that I've ever seen that show either. Apparently, you know, they're both English shows, BBC, UK shows, what have you. So there is your core cast. And I didn't really see very much of Fitz and Simmons. I just didn't get a good impression of them other than the fact that they're scientists and they're very tech-heavy and obviously very smart. So the main characters really seem to be Ward and Skye, who are the outsiders to this group. And then you've got Coulson and Ming-Na and Agent May, who are the veterans, and then you've got the tech people. So there's 6 principal characters in the cast right there, who are all working together. A couple of things I didn't like about this episode. At the end, Coulson invites Skye to join up with them, and she's like, I'm not exactly a team player. And he says, we're not exactly a team. I'm like, of course you are. You're definitely a team. Give me a break. And then there was the gag with the van, the door of her van, basically, where she's talking about how, you know, you can search high and low and you'll never find her, and then the door opens and they're standing right behind it. I kind of saw that one coming. But there's a lot of stuff that I did like about the episode. Some of my favorite lines in the film were when what's her face? Cobie Smulders is talking about Thor. And that he's a god, and Ward is like, I don't think technically he's a god, and she says, you haven't been near his arms. That's a good one. And Coulson talking with Agent May while she's at her desk, and he's saying, have you ever thought about adding a moat, because she doesn't want to be bothered, doesn't want to be out in the field anymore. But my favorite exchange is between Skye and Ward. He says to her in the interrogation room, there's 2 ways we can do this. And she says, oh, is one of them the easy way? He says, no. That's a good one. Yeah, so the blog that Skye was writing seems to be directly aimed at S.H.I.E.L.D., addressing them specifically. I just wrote down some notes here, but obviously she's not going to be keeping up with that if she's on the team himself. Forget the van. She's not going to be in the van anymore. She's going to be hanging out in the big airplane. Rising Tide. Is that an actual organization, or is that just Skye all by herself? I don't know. She calls herself Rising Tide in her blog posts, which is how they find her. But whether or not Rising Tide is an actual organization or if it's just her, I'm not real clear on. Okay, now here's a question. Coulson obviously got killed in the Avengers, so what is he doing here? They offer an explanation. He wasn't dead for, like, permanently. Samuel Jackson told the other guys on the Avengers team that he did die to motivate them to go and find the Tesseract, which wasn't true. He ended up recovering and spending time in Tahiti and then getting back into work again. But Ron Glass and Cobie Smulders have this little exchange where they're like, oh, he really doesn't know the truth, does he? He wasn't actually in Tahiti. So I'm concluding that the Coulson on the show is actually a clone. But, you know, we'll see. I guess there'll be more information about that to come. What are the odds that he's going to accidentally discover his own nature? I don't know. We'll see. So, yeah, what else? Oh, yeah, Project Centipede, which is what was inflicted on Mike Peterson. They have just like a constant barrage of references to the other movies. You've got gamma radiation from the Hulk, you've got the super soldier serum from Captain America, alien metal from Thor, obviously. So all that stuff is sort of combined into one big massive reference to other Marvel movies. Good for them for that. But I suppose we'll be seeing more of those people in the episodes to come. Also, the little drones appear to be named after the Snow White dwarves, but we only heard just... They called one of them Grumpy, and they had a name for one of the other ones, but I missed it. But there's a big clue where Fitz is singing the hi-ho, hi-ho, we have to go to work, so... So yeah, overall, I wouldn't say it's like a great episode or anything like that, but it's, you know, not a bad start, that's for sure. So I will, of course, be looking forward to more and making more videos, one for each episode. And, you know, feel free if you've got any thoughts on them to leave me comments and stuff like that. Appreciate it. I will talk to you again soon. Bye.